When we last left our adventurers, Cal had just signed the group up for another job for Mr. Sabat, taking care of a storm elemental at a shrine to Gulnur south of Volos. While this was going on, Alariel had been inquiring about Sebastian around the city. He was apparently renting several rooms in town, but staying in none of them. Many people are quite reluctant to talk about him, and down by the docks, he is entirely unknown. Alariel arrives back at the inn at the same time that Torrin and Alexandra come downstairs. Cal explains what has been happening over the last day or so, and everyone seems mostly on board with the various jobs. Teleri is still unhappy with the lack of information regarding Cheeks' entourage, but she still comes along when they set out a short time later for the alley. Once the group arrives, each person attempts to find a good place to wait until Cheeks gets there. Teleri, with Torrin's help, perches from a lantern sconce about 20 feet above the alley. Torrin buries himself in the refuse alongside Woofy, Celebrian hides in a dustbin, and Alariel and Alexandra hide around the corners of smaller side alleys. Cal, as per the plan, is standing in the open, acting as the bait. Unfortunately, no one in the group realized how dark it would get in the shadows of the academy at night. After only half an hour or so, it is pitch black, and only Teleri, who has dark vision, can see anything. A little while later, the group can hear a pair of drunks stumbling down the alley towards Cal, arguing about the desirable qualities of a pair of bards, though one is certainly more talkative than the other. When they get to Cal, the two drunks, now visible to Teleri as a couple of dwarves, stop for a moment. The talkative one asks Cal to settle their dispute over which is the better bard, and declares himself the winner of that contest based on Cal's rather tentative response. By now, the talkative dwarf has figured out that it is odd for Cal to be standing around in the middle of a dark alley, and asks what he is doing here. If Cal is looking for a fix, then the dwarf can sell him some Vaudère, a cheap powdered drug made from flowers, which makes a person more intimidating, and may make them think they have magical kung fu powers. If, on the other hand, Cal is looking to make some money, the dwarf can hook him up with some people with eccentric tastes. Cal declines the offer of drugs and hookups with prospective Johns, and bids them a good evening. The dwarves wander off, one of them leering at Alariel on their way out. Not long after, Teleri sees two hobgoblin footpads sneaking around below her. They have long, serrated Rillador knives, and seem to be watching Cal intently. They settle in below Teleri, seemingly without noticing anyone else. Teleri does not raise the alarm, as Cal has not given a signal yet. Shortly afterwards, Teleri hears soft footsteps coming from all directions, and then everyone hears the stomping of a large ogre coming up the alley towards Cal. Cal himself can hear someone walking up towards him, and then Cheeks' voice coming from the same direction. The others hear some words being exchanged, and then Cal's fiery burst blooms in the dark. Stepping back, Cal summons 3 large fiendish centipedes, blocking off the alley in front of Cheeks and behind the ogre. While they begin attacking, another 10 or so of Cheeks' allies rush out of the shadows, going after various group members. The sound of drumming fills the alleyway, and Cal can hear one of them casting a spell. Alexandra grabs her Morningstar, lighting it and bathing the section of the alley in front of her and Cal in torchlight. She spots a pair of dwarfs in front of her, one heavily armored and the other in robes, and 2 hobgoblins coming up behind. She takes a swing at the armored dwarf in front of her, but he easily turns aside the blow with his shield. Alariel, not appreciating being in an alley surrounded by strange men attempting to perforate her, casts Fly and heads to the top of the nearest building. Back in the main alley, the ogre slams into the centipede which attacked him, using his axe and shield, severing its connection to this plane. Cal and Torrin each take down one of the footpads, while the remaining centipede swarms somewhat ineffectually. Alexandra, clearly mad about her first blow being deflected so easily, swings wilder and more forcefully this time. While the blow bounces off the armored dwarf again, Cheeks, and the building standing between him and Alexandra, aren't so lucky. Ripping a hole through the masonry, Alexandra carves in part of Cheeks' skull, knocking him unconscious. The footpads, likely feeling a bit less confident now, attempt to take down the woman who just bested their boss, but are unable. From the top of her building, Alariel casts light on one of her curios and drops it in the alley, bathing the area in magical illumination so that the other main alleyway is now visible to everyone. Now that she can see, Celebrian bursts out of the dustbin and casts fear on one of the footpads. Teleri finishes summoning a trio of wolves imbued with ice, which, along with Woofy, set upon the thugs in the alley. Back in the other alleyway, the ogre turns his sight on the remaining centipede behind him, squashing it as easily as he did the first, while the dwarf wizard continues buffing his allies. Attempting to stop these two, Cal casts glitter dust, but only manages to blind the wizard. Alexandra manages to knock another footpad unconscious, which is enough for some of the thugs to realize that they are outmatched, and flee. Celebrian puts another footpad down with her bow, and the wolves take down one more, while Woofy moves up to the ogre. Teleri grows a tree from her perch and climbs to the roof. The ogre takes a swing at Woofy, cutting and bashing him, and the dwarf wizard casts Yirlon's blessing on the ogre, giving him 2 extra clawed arms. The ogre and one of the other thugs then fall to the ground as Cal's cast grease beneath them. The last remaining centipede makes a snack of Cheeks' body, while Torin ports to the top of the nearest building. Alariel summons a celestial hippogriff, who immediately attacks the dwarf wizard, ripping into him. Celebrian tries to dispel the ogre's buffs, and manages to remove several of them, though he keeps the extra limbs. While the frosty pack moves in towards the ogre and the armored dwarf, the wizard casts Sonic Weapon on the ogre's axe, giving him even more damage potential. Cal orders the remaining centipede to run up the side of the building so that he can get a clear shot at the ogre, and hits him with a pair of scorching rays. Alexandra, figuring that she cannot beat her way through the armored dwarf, starts climbing the building to get around him. While Alariel's hippogriff takes out the little drummer boy, the armored dwarf charges towards Cal, hitting him with a great deal of force as spells fly harmlessly past him. After Teleri fires a splinter bolt towards the dwarf wizard, gravely injuring him, she has Woofy activate his healing collar. Unfortunately, that was not enough, as the ogre then rips into Woofy with everything he has. Woofy is torn to pieces and dies on the spot. The dwarf wizard, clearly having had enough, tries to flee, but doesn't get past the hippogriff. Cal orders his last remaining centipede to leap from the building, crushing the ogre beneath him and knocking him unconscious. After the hippogriff takes care of the last remaining footpad, everyone moves in on the armored dwarf, as he is the only one of Cheeks' entourage left on his feet. Seeing that he is badly outnumbered and without backup, the dwarf says that he quits, and merely takes up a defensive position, waiting to see what the group will do. As the ice wolves crumple away, Teleri slides down a rope to the alley and blasts the ogre with cold, shattering his bones and killing him. Cal tells his centipede to finish off the dwarf wizard, and as the bug is feasting, Cal informs the armored dwarf that he will get the same if he does not drop his valuables and leave. The dwarf says that he will leave behind the payment that he received for this job, but he will keep the rest. It all seems to be ending quite peacefully, until Teleri casts Entangle on the dwarf, hitting most of the other members of the group as well, though they resist its effects. Cal and Alexandra demand to know what Teleri is doing, but the Aldrich does not reply. Cal then tells Teleri that the fight is over, the dwarf surrendered, but it obviously does not get through. Alexandra tries to help the dwarf free himself, but they cannot. Celebrian manages to dispel the entangle just in time for another trio of ice wolves to arrive, blasting the dwarf with cold. Alexandra hits one of the wolves with her mace, trying to help the dwarf who is simply running and healing himself, trying to get away alive. Teleri has her wolves blast the cleric again and mounts up on one of them, running in the direction of the inn. Coming around the corner, Cal tells the dwarf to drop his payment and run, which he wisely does. The group then sets upon the bodies of the fallen to look for anything of value. And this is where we have left off. So, what will Teleri do now? What sort of loot will the group find on the bodies? Who is the better bard, Carinia or Velosh? Find out next time on the Saga of Wounds to Cal's Chest.